Do you like TV?
Welcome to Taking It Down. We're the Alabama Takes discussion podcast for movies and television and music on occasion. You can reach us at thealabamatake@gmail.com or any social media account related to the Alabama Take. We are umbrellaed or housed under the Alabama Take, even though we're taking it down. Just the pop culture podcast for those folks. All of this can be seen on the website too. I'm the host. My name's Blaine Duncan. What should you expect here? Fun. That's what. Good times, great oldies. This podcast is released every Tuesday morning, bright and early. I keep inching the release earlier just to see if anybody will notice, like 4:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3. If you listen to it that early, I would be very curious. Subscribe to us. Expect us in your podcast feeds Tuesday morning. As for this week, we are primarily going to talk about the return of two of our recent favorites. Season 2 of Netflix's Russian Doll and Season 3 of the HBO murder comedy, Barry. With me today, as always, this is the guy who just ran 500 miles and he swallowed down all the vegan options in Florence, Alabama. There are none left. It's Adam Morrow.
Still feeling a little peckish too, a little hungry. Not a lot of vegan options in Florence, Alabama.
Exactly. And not least in any way is the mastermind behind Quibi. It's Donovan Ronwald.
It's great to be here, Blaine.
I love it. I missed it. I missed you guys last week.
Did you?
I did. Yeah.
Did you really? Or is that just like your thing? To say?
No. There's something about Donovan's lean into the microphone. His lean in greeting just gets me every time. I think, man, I love these guys.
We love you too. The done up real good listener of the week. We're going to dole it out to Corey Hanna. It's Corey Hanna's this week. Time to get on board with the site and all of its incarnations now, because Corey Hanna, he's the listener of the week, but he's got some things in his back pocket. Briefly mentioned. If you know where to look and listen, you kind of know where we're going with that. Thanks for listening, Corey Hanna. Sweet Corey.
Sweet Corey.
Yeah, I'm so happy you guys took a little time off from watching the Johnny Depp case this week and try to get into some television.
Listen, my Instagram tries to force this case onto me, as does my Twitter, and I have not interacted with anything even remotely close to celebrity gossip on any of those platforms, and I don't know why they think that I want to see these different like reaction videos and blah blah blah. Terrible. I hate it.
It was tempting. I guess there was some poo poo talk this week. And
I think she literally shit the bed on
that
purpose.
Was pretty tempting, right? But
that's almost tempting.
I saw it go by and I thought, if I click, the algorithm will know and it'll ensnare me forever.
But no, I'm in the same boat as Adam. It just keeps getting shoved down my throat. I don't care at all. There's nothing I care less about right now except for maybe...
Johnny Depp lost work over this. He should have been Grindelwald.
It does suck for him.
I mean, did he really? I don't know the story in full. See, I'm blind with this. All I know is it's happened and she shit the bed literally. Did he abuse her at all, or is that what's
That's
happened?
what they're trying to figure out.
That's the point of the case, right? Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, if he did, he doesn't need to be in that movie. He deserves some punishment for that shit, I guess, right? I don't know. Fuck, I didn't want to talk about this, and here we are.
Man,
okay.
What an absolute fall apart the Harry Potter universe has had. It's really unfortunate. You got that going on.
We talked about this last week.
I'm sure Natalie brought it up. You got JK.
No, we did.
Yeah. Listeners, I was absent, and I need to listen to their summary of The Northman, because I saw it this week, and I didn't really get to discuss it in full with them. I need to do that via podcast. I need to be a good fan as well as a good contributor.
That's why you're not listener of the week.
I know.
You gotta actually listen.
Everything that I say, you guys are going to say, we talked about this last week, Adam. If you would do your homework and listen to the show.
Yes.
Speaking of homework, though, you did finally finish Severance, something I think Donovan and I talked about, or Or maybe we didn't talk about it.
We did already talk about Severance.
Yeah, y'all definitely did.
But what'd you think about the...
I loved it. I thought it was incredible. And, you know, I did all that, the traveling and the playing music and stuff, I guess when that show was coming out pretty hot and heavy every week. So I was 3 weeks behind, basically, on television and had to catch up. And not a program that really invites the binge emotionally.
Not really.
We did watch the last 2 episodes back to back, I think, but not the whole thing. I thought it was great. I thought this is so good. I guess maybe the only spoiler I had is that it has been renewed for season 2, right? And I think they announced that maybe during the last few weeks of it being on, or maybe it was after anyway, I knew that it was coming back, so I knew that I would get an inconclusive finale. But so many shows do what it was able to do over the first half of being really good and setting up this elaborate story, and then they just shit the bed on landing the plane. And I thought...
They Amber Heard the bed.
Yeah, this is this is a program that actually did it. It was quality through the end. Obviously, we're not at the end yet, but man, what a show. I can't believe it's not bigger than it is. This feels like one that will get discovered as it bounces around everyone's streaming habits before season 2.
I don't think there's going to be very many big shows anymore.
You don't think so?
You know, I don't think so.
Because the media landscape is so fragmented.
Everybody's watching different things. How about a not so cursory check in with Moon Knight? So spoilers, listeners, for the 5th and penultimate episode of the show, including Adam.
I told y'all I'm behind.
We'll be general. I'll tell you what, no spoilers then. Let's
Boy, this is going to be hard to talk about with no spoilers.
Yeah, it is.
Just let it rip. Let them rip.
Nah, it's actually a really good episode, I thought. Like, solid.
Really?
Episode. I thought so. Did you not?
I wasn't quite as sold on it.
Okay. Because of the tropes it tried to implement?
Maybe because of the tropes it tried to implement, and also I wasn't sure about its... You know, there's only 1 episode left. Mm-hmm. It kind of felt like it killed the momentum a little bit for me.
Interesting. I think because it's Oscar Isaac, I had... This penultimate episode gave me more emotional investment in him.
Yeah.
In the character of Stephen and Mark. I was just like...
Oscar Isaac was still doing great work.
I think this episode helped me love that character.
Interesting.
Whereas I just, liked him because he's an MCU protagonist, and that felt natural to do, obviously. But I fell in love with him. I felt an emotional connection to this character that I don't know that I've felt since I was a kid and reading Spider-Man comic books.
Can we talk about the big spoiler that he's Jewish?
Wait, what? Yeah. Let's come back to this. And in fact, what we'll do is that this might be good to put on the shelf for now, because next week we will be able to talk about the whole series as a whole and decide if we liked the penultimate episode and what it did. But right now, Donovan, so where are you? Are you very meh? Or you thought it was fine? What?
I thought it was
fine.
I
loved it.
I wasn't like angry or anything. I just thought it was fine.
Okay, we'll just put this one on the shelf and then talk about the series as a whole. There are only 6 episodes, so listeners, if you like, kind of sort of like MCU stuff, I think right now I can recommend it wholeheartedly. We'll just shift gears into Barry. This is not the Barack Obama movie, by the way, on Netflix. just to spare you any confusion. If you're not watching Barry on HBO or HBO Max, you should. You really should. It's one of the shows I recommend, very full-throated. This one, Severance, Euphoria. There's been a few shows that I've just really been vocal about over the last 2 or 3 years, and this is one. We're going to be talking about the 3rd season opener, so there are only 2 seasons. They're 30 minutes apiece. Catching up would not be too impossible.
No.
And because of our release schedule for this show, taking it down, we'll be a week behind Barry, which, that could provide some cushion to listeners if they want to catch up. I think Donovan's going to reiterate what I'm saying soon, but it's one of the better shows airing right now.
I think I'd agree with that. And the season 3 opener came out pretty strong, I thought.
It came out guns blazing.
Yes, it did. Almost literally.
Yeah, quite. This show is so good that it nearly disregards its protagonist in this season 3 opener.
Yeah.
And it was still wonderful.
You know, this is part of what makes this show so great is that it's almost always Bill Hader playing the straight man in any given situation. And I feel like this episode kind of took that to its logical conclusion, where it's like whenever, just like you said, they barely had to focus on him.
Mm-hmm.
So until they need a straight man for any particular scene, and then he comes in.
I agree with that. It's an uncomplicated premise, but it works because of. So the premise is he's a hitman and he is trying to get into acting. That's like
falls in love with acting.
But it works beyond the premise because it takes risk and nails them. That's always a good thing to have for a show. But it also has characters you just love despite all of their flaws. Like, they have some big flaws.
Barry himself, I find very lovable because he loves acting so much, and he's so bad at it unless he's able to access basically his violent past, and that's the only time.
Or some trauma.
Yeah. And he is a stone cold killer, but he's got, you know, he's so endearing because he doesn't want to be a killer. He wants to be an actor. Now, what do you think about, speaking of characters that you find endearing, where Barry's girlfriend, this season opener?
Yeah, I've got a prediction about her that she was not pleasant in this episode, and she may likely become the antagonist for season 3.
I was wondering if something along that lines would happen, if the semi-success she's having is going to her head.
And it does seem to be the case. One risk that the show took this opening episode is that any other show would end the episode with Mr. What's his name? Mr. Cousineau?
Cousineau, right?
Cousineau, Henry Winkler's character. It would end with Mr. Cousineau debating Barry's death or even maybe pulling a gun out on him. But this one goes ahead and gives you what would usually be the beginning of the next episode, which is a little bit of the resolution. So it presents a conflict and then resolves it. And it does, in previous seasons, it'll do that. Like, you think they're going to stretch this for the whole season, and they'll just nail it in 30 minutes.
Henry Winkler was so great in that scene, too, as he plays the hard man he's about going to pull a gun on Barry. And then, as he plays, within seconds, the man whose gun has literally come apart on him... And he just kind of has to sit there and go, oh no. I feel a little bit like the old SNL sketch with boy, this would be great if I could remember people's names.
Oh, tell me.
He's dead.
Chris Farley.
Thank you, Chris Farley, where he just was like, you were in the Beatles, right? That was great. Like, I feel a little bit like
the Chris Farley Show.
Thank you.
Where his entire interview just consists of bringing up things they've done and saying it's wonderful.
I feel a little bit like that with Barry, where just everything in this episode, especially with like checking back in with our characters, everything they did was just like, I love this thing that they did. What did you see how NoHo Hank and Cristobal got together? That was awesome.
Exactly.
So I feel like the Chris Farley Show.
NoHo Hank being a voice of reason? What, when does that happen? Though everything he says sounds like he's going to be the voice of reason, but he'll be like, go ahead, kill the guy. It's okay. I love NoHo Hank.
I loved the plot twist. No, it's not really a plot twist, but I loved the plotting that they're trying to pin everything on Fuchs.
Yes.
By calling him a Chechen killer named the Raven, which they thought was totally badass.
Yeah.
And also the revelation that Fuchs is an Ohio State fan.
Oh, yes. Huge.
Never missed a game, trying to in the middle of Chechnya, trying to get a TV aerial on the rooftop so he can watch Ohio State football.
And he hasn't missed a game in 25 years.
Yes.
Of course Fuchs is an Ohio State fan.
This is what I'm saying, where it's like every check-in with every character was like, do you see that? That was awesome.
You know a show's good when they can just give you an image of a character and you know enough about them that it makes you laugh. like NoHo Hank with his foot propped on the car tire while he's on the phone? That's the police image? Is this you studying out on the phone? Didn't know he was being photographed? Yeah, so Sally. So Sally's directing now. Bill Hader directed this episode, and I really appreciated how much of the set he displays. The behind the scenes stuff can be kind of interesting, but they gotta put that in here a little. It's not really meta, but they just put that in there because Sally's on a show set. And then you get Hader directing, but his acting's also, I think, a step above than it was maybe when he was on SNL or whatever.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is having to play restrained.
Yeah.
Because it is what so many of his other, on SNL or other bits that he did, he was the weird guy.
Right.
And here, I mean, it's not like he's not the weird guy, but he's just the character that he is kind of emotionally repressed.
Yeah.
You know, it almost always functions as the straight man.
Yeah. Barry's weird but restrained.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is kind of sort of weird, but a little emotional or over the top to a degree.
Which especially made a lot of sense when the whole show is really about actors.
In most cases, bad actors.
Bad actors.
In more than one way.
I was going to say sometimes literal bad actors.
If you're like me and you knew you recognized Sally's scene partner, that was Elise Fisher from the movie 8th Grade.
Oh, she was good.
She was great in 8th Grade.
As the studio exec says, sometimes that comes back to bite you in the ass.
And then we get the wonderful, it's like the quote from Shawshank Redemption, get rich or die trying. Barry, only one episode of the 3rd season for us to talk about. We might return to it, you never can tell, but it's so worth your time. It's so good. We broke down a little of why, in case you've never seen it. Let's take a break. All right, I can't express how proud I am of our creators and writers and people involved with the Alabama Take. I encourage everyone listening to give that site a visit. Coming soon, we have a new weekly podcast that will be mid to late May release. I teased it last week as well. We'll give you more as the weeks come on. Also, the Alabama Take has a few other things in the works, so follow us on social media and you won't feel left out or behind on any of those things we've got coming for release. Of course, we'd love it if you subscribe to this show, assuming you haven't already. Leave us a review. We recently heard from ayahuasca for
Talking
breakfast.
ayahuasca here?
Yeah, are you into it? Did you leave this review?
I know a guy who went into the jungles of either Central or South America, like far off a beaten path, to seek it out and had some insane transcendental experience.
Yeah.
It's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard.
I actually know who left this review because it's a friend who's done it a couple of times. Anyway, we also heard a review from Nick, parentheses, get it. I don't, but okay. And Ruby Bells. They all reviewed our show of late. We got a few in. Thank y'all so much. Let's get back into this week's episode of Taking It Down.
Hey, even bad reviews are reviews, right?
Even bad press is press. We all got glowing reviews, because I asked people to leave a review.
Yeah,
That's
that's
basically
great.
why. I mean, I literally reached out to people and asked them to review. We're going to talk some Russian doll.
Speaking of ayahuasca,
Yeah, exactly. That fits wonderfully in line with this show a little. Brought to you by Natasha Leone, who wrote the first episode of the 2nd season, and a team of writers whom she calls genius. Did you guys catch that Rolling Stone interview with her?
I didn't. I need to read that. Every time the credits pop up on the screen, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot this person was involved, and this person was involved.
Oh, do you know some of them?
Well, like just very like cursory glance is like Amy Poehler's involved, and
right.
and blah blah blah. It's an impressive list of folks she's got working on this program.
Was that interview in the April issue of Rolling Stone?
In the most recent one,
It's
whatever
in
that is. Would that be May?
Probably.
Yeah,
I
it's in the
haven't
May
seen that
issue.
yet.
Yeah, good interview. Very gives a little insight to real broad strokes of what she's trying to do with this season. And my first thought, because that first season was so done and compact, these are 30-minute episodes, was, do we need another season? But, you mentioned Amy Poehler and Leon, when pitching this show, said it was a 3-season show. So that's, I think, came up in that interview. And that's going to be interesting to see what they're doing this season in full. I've got 3 episodes under my belt.
Yeah, I'm 2 in. That's okay. I didn't know that about the 3-episode or 3-season arc. Or if I read it, I didn't remember. And I was really holding to the last season on summary, like a life raft, going into it, because I mostly remembered really enjoying season 1, but also thinking, like, how do you, kind of like you were saying, like, does this need a season 2? How do you recreate this insane thing? Is it going to be a different trope, whatever? But by the end of episode 2, I guess we're going to get into this, but it took a while to get up to speed, but I'm in on this season.
The first season, the premise is, it's a premise-heavy show, but it's doing things that work quite well outside of just having a premise, and that's Natasha Lyonne's character, Nadia, dies over and over and over and over and over. Adam, I'm going to let you interject if I get anything wrong, but she always comes back at her own birthday party, her 36th or 37th birthday party.
The same moment every time. She's in the bathroom, looks in the mirror, walks out, party's on.
So it's almost like it takes a little of Groundhog Day and then puts that into much more metaphysical microscope. Would you say that?
Yeah. Like any of those, you use the phrase premise heavy, any of those premise heavy things where you want to shove the character and say, why are you not asking these questions? You know what I mean? Why are you just going about your business? It immediately starts with those questions.
That's exactly right. And I've encountered some of that this season. I'll get into that. But this is the second time in as many weeks the third time in 2 weeks where I've been pretty forgetful and baffled due to what's happening in television. Better Call Saul felt like it was gone way too long, and I couldn't figure out for a second or two who was doing what and why. Same thing with Russian Doll. And same thing with Barry. Barry's very opening scene kind of left me very confused, very baffled, but it was supposed to, luckily, so I wasn't losing all of my memories.
Yeah, it's like we're coming back from the pandemic lull, I guess. Like there's an extra gap in our brains on top of it being actual time. It was weird.
We took a gap year.
Yeah,
everybody.
Brain mush time.
You took a gap year whether you wanted it or not. Well, let's get into the second season, and I'll if you haven't seen it, you might want to draw a spoiler line right here, or we will, because we're going to talk about the first 2 episodes for sure in some depth. We'll reveal some plot stuff. No, I feel like knowing some of this plot doesn't quite give you the experience you need. I have been continually disconcerted about how nonchalant Nadia, the character, is at this new scenario. Like you were talking about, I wanted to shake the character. I want her to be like smarter than maybe she is, especially after having gone through season 1.
It was funny that when it happened, her attitude was just like, okay, I live in a world where this is a universe where this is, and I can't necessarily control it. I'm going to have to figure this out slowly, like I did last time. So, sure, random guy that I bumped into at this bar whose pack of matches I found, I'll take Quaaludes and this Black Beauty and follow you home and start making out. That sounds great. Mm-hmm. She's very go with the flow.
That part I don't blame her about. I don't blame her for taking the Quaalude and the Black Beauty. It's making out with this guy with the knowledge that he and her mother probably had a thing.
Well, she doesn't know that when the makeout begins, right?
Okay.
In the first one.
Oh, is that okay? Okay.
The first episode.
Okay, well, I feel a little better about it.
Yeah, but she does go back.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. She's in 1982 and not just time travels via train to 1982, but she also is in the body of her mom, who is pregnant with her. Now, that is ripe for dissection, okay? And this guy she meets in a bar because she had a matches that had his name in it, right? he had stole her fortune from what her grandmother had brought over on a train from the Holocaust. That's some intense shit.
And it sets up so well the idea that I assume. I mean, I don't want to guess too much about where they're going with this, but it's certainly about. I'm not going out on a limb to say it's about generational trauma and how things are shared, and for her to be as mad at her mom as she is, and then have to also look at her grandmother and see her kind of more alive than she probably experienced as a. We don't know how they overlapped in quote unquote real life.
Where you say see her.
Yeah.
You mean that literally and figuratively. She's face to face with a younger version of her grandmother. Yeah.
One who's maybe more of a fully fledged personality, more like the woman that her mom knew. Well, it is the woman that her mom knew, not her grandmother. You know what I mean? The different relationship.
Right, because her grandmother's reacting to
throwing that heavy a backstory in for grandma too. Is like you end up with these three generations of women who have been through some pretty profound stuff. And
you're right, this show is a lot about the study of epigenetics. Have either of you done much reading on epigenetics? I guess I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's so new to me, and because I'm white male is probably why. But are you guys familiar with this?
That's not talking about inherited. Like you can basically inherit traumas and things like that from your parents, from your mother and father.
Right. And maybe beyond, like a grandparent. Right. They were doing the one link I clicked on to semi-prepare for this show is they were doing studies a couple of years ago on Black Americans, to see how much of not so random illnesses are happening because of trauma that they passed in your gene. And it's not so much that it changes your genes, but that your genes, because of the way they are, your DNA, because of the way it is, will react differently if put in a different situation. It's a fascinating concept, and one I wouldn't mind reading a full article just to sit down with. I don't know if I could read a whole book. It'd probably all go over my head. But
I know I've read about like the plasticity. Individual brain plasticity is definitely a thing that's kind of entered pop science, right? And like it's it's an optimistic, encouraging idea, but they're now also tying that into this generational trauma that, if there's something that patterns of behavior in the family history, you can change that, you can stop that. You can actually like rewire how your kid's brain may react down the line. That stuff's fascinating. I don't know enough about it for it to not sound like pop science while I'm talking to you guys right now, but it's really interesting.
No, I'm digging it. It's something we're very aware of as we're raising our girl. God bless my wife. She's been very complimentary of how I am avoiding some of the pitfalls my parents might have been unable to avoid because of knowledge.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff, and this is exactly what this show is about this season.
That's such heavy stuff too. To jump into a new season and like just kind of say this is what it's about. It's about this very she's going to get on the subway train and it's going to be 1982, 82, and that's like a fine concept. But to immediately dive into such a heady space, like it wastes no time saying we're doing some heavy lifting. She even says at one point the nature versus nurture thing, and just eviscerates that idea.
Right.
Pretty fascinating.
And then throw in on top of that her grandmother survived the Holocaust. Her mother is prone to disassociation and schizophrenic, maybe even undiagnosed. The fictional mother.
Yeah, now we know why. Her daughter was time traveling and leaving her voicemails. Or answering machine messages, sorry.
Yeah, I do have a couple of qualms. All of this is so interesting, and it's exploded in conversation here between the three of us, but the presentation of the show this season, I've got qualms. And one is that Nadia being able to just come and go whenever she pleases from present day to 1982 New York does strip some of the tension and conflict. Like, she's not in any real quote-unquote danger because she can just
not take the train,
jump back on the subway.
yeah. Call an Uber instead. I was surprised that it only took... Well, it took no time for her to start jumping back and forth. I thought that was at least like a 2-episode arc of her kind of learning the rules of the universe, because it was last time, right? Where she slowly figures out there's nothing she can do to escape the loop. There's still some things in the background that maybe indicate she hasn't really figured it out, like the fella from season 1.
Oh, for sure.
That maybe it's all coming a little too easy right now.
Alan from season 1. And Alan, we do get a glimpse of him at the end of episode 2. He's going to give this train thing a try, and he gets on the train, and there's writing in German above his head. So that, and of course, we just got through talking about the Holocaust. I think my frustration is coming from Nadia herself, in that she's really smart as a character, yet she doesn't ever apply the idea that I am Nadia inside of my mom, and I need to maybe act like that sometimes.
She's not worried about that.
That frustrates it frustrates the hell out of me. I just want to say, dude, you would be able to get what you want a little faster, a little more methodically maybe, but if you would just act like your mom right now and quit saying weird shit that people can't understand.
Yeah, like when she goes to the car dealership and is making quips about Cheers and things that haven't culturally happened yet, and seems to be just totally undeterred. The only time she really seems to play by those rules is when she's interacting with Ruth, right? Maybe out of respect for her and from wanting to get to know her more as a younger person. In the present day and in last season, I thought that her kind of reckless abandon was earned. Like, I believed Natasha Lyonne was playing it in such a way that, like when she goes, say, to the guy's house in modern day, quote unquote, in the Bronx to try to see what he did with the treasure, I totally believe that her character would just roll in there, kick her feet up, and start talking shit.
Yes. And it's when she does that, when you know good and damn well it would be better to just pretend like you are your mom in 1982. And surely there's a reason for that. I'll also add that Natasha Lyonne, I get the feeling that you either love her or hate her as an actress.
Makes sense.
She is playing an abrasive character, funny but abrasive, and she probably is funny but abrasive in real life.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with you, though, Adam. In episode 2, I was really beating my head against the wall trying to figure out what kind of statement the show was making about us and our parents. It took me episode 3 to kind of connect some dots, and it seems like you already have.
Well, we'll see.
Well,
it's such a heavy premise that I don't know. They're maybe setting something up to undercut it, or they may be. I don't know where it's going.
I'm an episode ahead of you, but I think you kind of are in the right spot. We have seen so many shows that swim in the waters of taking on past trauma, the trauma of parents, grandparents. We've seen that a lot lately, I feel like. And with so many shows wrestling with that, what do you think that's saying about where we are in 2022?
I mean, maybe it's a generation, millennials are basically 30 till 40, early 40s right now. Maybe it's a generation coming, a generation coming to power, quote unquote power, the ability to make shows as they want them made, reckoning with the same things that boomers did at one time and Gen X did at one time. And I don't know, it seems like every successive generation has been more emotionally open about what's bugging them. So maybe this is at the forefront of the millennial brain. I don't know. Just be talking out of my ass here.
Donovan, why are we all of a sudden immersed in shows that are talking about not just trauma, but past trauma?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure I have a good answer for it, because it honestly hadn't occurred to me. But I wonder if do the folks making these shows, do the audiences watching them have a feeling of being trapped by actions in the past that they did not take?
Say boomers. Say it.
Well, as you're talking, Donovan, I'm thinking about the way that 2020 shook out and the things that were bubbling under the surface. But before that, both in, the Black Lives Matter movement has a very obvious through line through history about what America has done into successive generations and the trauma that's getting passed down, but also what you're kind of hinting at with maybe the economic resentment that's growing right now for everyone. And you can climate change, all these things that you can pin on the decisions of people who just can't be bothered to give a shit.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder if that's not where it's coming from, because that is the thing about generational trauma. It does kind of trap you, especially if you're repeating the same, if those traumas repeat, or they repeat in a sense that I heard someone describe it once as you teach your kids to be a little bit careful over here and a lot careful over there. And that's the way you were raised, to be a little bit careful here and a lot careful there. And it just continues going down through the generations. And they do they leave you in a loop.
Wow. We're fucked. Episode 3, though, gives a wonderful big shout out to librarians. Donovan, you'll be thrilled to know that. Yeah,
that's good.
We
still have some role to play in this world, I suppose.
Well, it's 1982.
Oh, that was the halcyon days.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch this show and also be trying to catch up on Winning Time, which was, I think, 1980 based. It's funny to see this stuff on screen again.
Jerry West is mad. When are we going to talk about that? He's pissed.
Are you watching it? I didn't know you were watching it.
No, I'm just every other day on Twitter I see that he has made some, that whole world has made some new claim about how far, we'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court, what they're doing to me, and it's pretty wild.
Oh, I can see why, but yeah, I can see why. I've watched 3 episodes of Winning Time so far. I'm quite behind on it, but yeah, that makes sense.
Would you recommend?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I was all in on the first episode. The stock dropped in the second, crashed for me.
Much like Netflix.
Episode 3, yeah. Episode 3, I put a lot more money back in those stocks. So.
You double down.
Do you like my metaphor there?
Now's the time to buy Netflix. I'm surprised we didn't talk about the potential ramifications.
We don't get into the ins and outs of that.
The industry side of it.
Yeah, that's for other podcasts. You can go listen to The Ringer. They got a great podcast called The Watch, which they cover that kind of shit. That's not us, because we don't get the breaking news. But I do want to ask you guys on air: are we promising a Doctor Strange coverage next week? Is that on our radar?
It's on our radar. I don't know if we can promise it.
I can make no promises.
Okay.
I'll be coming back from a gig
from New Orleans.
From New Orleans. If you find yourself in New Orleans next week, come on down.
I'm just going to throw some things on the table and let our listeners mull it over as well.
We ought to let them vote.
I thought about that. Yeah, I thought about putting it on like Twitter as one of those polls. So Doctor Strange, I don't know. Can we get to it in time? I may be able to, but we'll see. That horror comedy, The Baby, on HBO, that's possible. We Own This City. Also, we'll have a couple episodes on air by that time. There's a new Elizabeth Moss show, Shining Girls, on Apple TV Plus. That might be good. And, I think we owe Apple TV Plus a long conversation of how it's turning into the HBO of streaming.
Yeah.
What does that make HBO?
The HBO of HBO. HBO of cable. Sorry.
Of cable.
And then, of course, I think we already have semi-promised the entirety of Moon Knight by next Tuesday. Anyway, the point is, there are a lot of options. It's hard for us to narrow it down and keep our show within a 45-minute time range every week. So this is what we got for you. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you get a kick out of it. We'll be back next Tuesday to talk about probably Moon Knight as a whole and some of those other things. And subscribe to us and you won't miss. Make it a goal to listen to those first few minutes. You might get Listener of the Week. And if you do, that means your love is in the mail. That's about all we said for those. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next week.